What if the very thing that makes us powerful is what is destroying us? We built a prison and called it progress. And the walls, binary code. Every photo, every heartbeat on a smartwatch, every word I say online, all reduced to ones and zeros. From AI-generated videos of Stephen Hawking wrestling to the food you order on your phone without actually talking to another human, our entire lives are now built around efficiency. Still, we're starving for meaning. We don't notice it, but the tools we've built to serve us have started to define us. We're staring at the paintbrush, thinking it's the painting. In this video, I'm going to show you how binary code has become an invisible prison for humanity and what it's doing to us. Let's do it. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mitch. I use this channel as an open letter to talk to myself and remember that personal development, spirituality, spiritual practices don't always have to be so serious. So let's just goof and gab with it, right? Part 1, the binary world we built. Binary code. Now, before we even get into it, I need to make this very, very clear. I am not a computer person. I don't know dick about it. I know how to use them because I've grown up with them, but I don't know anything about the inner workings of them. In the computer. So the fun thing about learning about all this stuff was learning just about the history of computation and the history of binary code. For those of you who don't know, binary code is a system of coding in which all things can be pretty much distilled down to two separate digits, 0 and 1. Off, on, dark, light. Two separate things coming together in different configurations to then create letters and numbers and codes. There are many other types of things. We have like Boolean algebra, which has 3, hexagonal stuff, which is like 8 digits and things like that. But it all can be traced to binary code of 0 and 1. So the fun thing about learning about all this stuff was learning just about the history of computation and the history of binary code. We can trace the history of various usages of this like binary system from like way back into cultures in Africa and Asia who were using drums with 2 different tones as a way of communication, and even Book of Changes by Fuxi in the 9th century, who talked about this connection between yin and yang, and so these 2 units, right? The on and the off, or the 0 and the 1. And systems even in India developed by the Pingala and the Pingala stratus. Hey there, this is Mitch from the Editing Bay. I want to take a moment to actually kind of address that I am rushing through all of this history in regards to binary code in relation to black and brown cultures, only to then talk about a white person. I think it is important for me to lean on the fact that so much of our history is built on the successes and discoveries of black and brown cultures that were then co-opted and stolen by white people, claiming it as their own. Benefit about the binary code here, and with Gottfried Leibniz, who I will talk about, he does directly reference the Book of Changes by Fuxi, so at least he does give credit, and I want to give that credit as well. But our modern ideas and modern approach toward binary code and modern computation can be traced to Gottfried Leibniz in 1689. And made this system believing it could simplify complex and mathematical processes, and it could be used to express all forms of arithmetic and logic. And boy, he was right. Look, I mean, literally, it worked. It works precisely because it reduces complexity into manageable, discrete steps. And these steps created opportunities for higher volumes of computation. The linotype machine, the scale of 2 counter, and it led to Alan Turing, gay icon, period, helping design the foundation of modern computation today. Everything that all of our computer systems are based on now are based through that lineage. Crash course through this all. Please do your own research on the binary, on how we've got to binary code, because it is actually fascinating, even though I don't like math, or I was never good at math because I didn't have teachers who appreciated my my individuality and reports to math. And I just didn't ever really apply myself with math. But in the research now, it is actually fascinating to think about the systems that we have now aren't naturally occurring, right? And this is exactly the purpose of this video, is it was something someone made a long time ago, and we've just refined it over years and years and years to get to where we are now. But if computers see the world and understand the world in a binary way, and we increasingly see the world through computers, through computation, what happens to everything that isn't binary? Part 2, the cost of the binary illusion. I identify as non-binary in my life. Surprise, I know. And that's sort of the reason why I wanted to, or was thinking about this a lot, is because every time I go and fill out a form online, when I get to the gender marker, it for a long time was always male, female. And now it's thankfully getting more options. I usually on average see 4 now, right? It's like male, female, other, and undisclosed. And even though language of other and undisclosed it just kind of feels icky. There are options and other options I see that do have the various gender expressions, which is great. But on average, it is just those other 2. And it always feels icky because it's like I am some other third thing or some other thing, but it feels weird to call myself other. And then the idea of it being undisclosed is also just like, it makes me laugh because it's like, what the... Yes, I'm glad that there's that option because it shouldn't matter for this form that I'm filling out online or the basic sort of information if I'm male or female. But undisclosed always feels very much like I'm some sort of English aristocrat. And I'm like, I shall not tell you my secrets. So that's kind of the reason why I wanted to start talking about this, because I'm noticing as well that so much of the binary systems of computers are informing a lot of this binary thinking, when in reality, nature and naturally occurring things are not binary. And it's because we are in concert constantly with computers. We use them every day. I'm using it right now to write my scripts, to film these videos, to edit all this stuff and post it online. And because there is so much concert with computers and we have such a deep relationship with them now, that these digital systems start shaping the way that we think, whether we're aware of it or not. And it's like social media, algorithms, language always sort of rewards clear categories versus ambiguity. And obviously that is a response to human nature, which is seeking structure, order, patterns to help us survive. It's just evolution at this point of people and systems that we create in order to know, hey, those berries will kill us if we eat them. Let's eat these berries, and hey, let's not climb up that hill because that's where a mountain lion lives. That hill bad, this hill good. And so if we can distill it down to those things, it's obviously from a place of survival. But technology, humanity, how all of these systems have evolved in an exponential way faster than our own biology, right? So it's that feeling of anxiety and self-worth and worry, and all of these things are derived from this idea of survival. We have very little biological difference from our caveman ancestors in terms of, or our Neanderthal ancestors in terms of biological reactions to external stimuli. And so we've always wanted clarity over ambiguity because ambiguity leaves more room for death, really. But because of that, and because so many systems now are built from that clarity instead of nuance, it then starts to conflict, right, with the nature of us, which is ambiguous. But we see it everywhere, right? Even in how it's evolving further and further into these binary structures of politics. They were sort of seeing the dissolving of any type of nuance or spectrum in terms of political ideology, and it is now very much left or right, with gender too. We have detailed history of non-binary and trans people and differing genders throughout history. Examples throughout history everywhere. I've talked about this in an old video as well. It's, I think, because of the way we have utilized computers that makes it difficult for people to be open-minded to the idea of different genders than man and woman, or something else, or something, a combination of those, or a complete eradication of that structure and to find something new. And even morality, good and evil. When we know no one is inherently entirely good or entirely evil. I know that it feels like that sometimes, that people are just completely evil, but it's kind of not like that. It's kind of not like that, you know. Like I'm making a small hoo-ha about it. I know I've done things that are morally just and morally reprehensible in my life. I've done good things and I've done bad things, and that doesn't make me a good or bad person or an evil person. It just makes me a person. Hey there, Mitch from the Editing Bay again. I just also want to say that obviously people are capable of doing pure evil and things that are specifically and very evil. And so I don't want to pretend that evil doesn't exist, just something to offer more balance about. And so all of this stuff is to give example to the idea, or my fascination with the idea that binaries simplify things, but through that simplification, we distort. We distort the information. We, again, strip away the hues of existence into stark primary colors until ultimately it's black and white. You know, it's like Wizard of Oz when it was living in the sepia tone world and then steps into Oz and it's Technicolor. It's like we're sort of reverting back into, or we were dropped into Oz in this world of wonderful color, but then through fear and survival and computational power and prowess and technological advancement, we have stepped further and further and further into this sort of sepia tone or duotone world. And part of this research was, I was actually very curious of like trying to find binary systems in nature. Just because I had that thought myself. I was like, is binary just a code that we have used to craft an understanding and observation of the world through the tools of computers, or are there actual systems of a binary, or are there actual binary systems in the world? And surprise, surprise, there aren't, because one thing nature does not like is straight lines. Work. But we have spectrums of light and visible light, and we have the expansive universe that is constantly moving, and so it has no sort of hard line of universe here, no universe there, and unpredictable weather, life, even life and death in some instances. The only real thing I thought at this point that was any type of natural form of binary, you're either alive or you're dead, right? Something has life or something has no life. Then I got into this cryptobiosis, and that's that's something we can talk about later, but basically it sounds exactly like it is. It's sort of these things that for all biological observational structures should be dead, and yet they're living. I didn't realize that this is why we are so particular about the way we handle corpses, is because of these bacteria that start to exist, that start to clump together and create a sort of tidal wave of dead but not dead bacteria that can then start to eat our flesh, basically. It's fascinating stuff. And so throughout all of this, the more I was researching, the more it became abundantly clear to me that binaries and binary systems and binary codes and binary structures are structures we create as a tool of categorization. That's it. All we're trying to do is categorize. And at its simplest form, right? It's easy to categorize things into two separate buckets versus an infinite number of buckets. And again, that categorization is all relative. Because let's think about this. Something that we can very clearly think about as binary is gravity, right? Gravity exists. What goes up must come down. But that's only in relation to ourselves on planet Earth. Gravity does exist everywhere else, yes, but there are places where gravity is more powerful and less powerful, right? The gravitational pull on Jupiter is different than the gravitational pull on Mercury. And while gravity does exist everywhere, yes, the larger we look at things, the more complex it becomes. And then the smaller we look at things, the more complex it becomes. And so this is why I love humanity so much, is because we are this nexus point between the infinitely small and the infinitely large. We are that connector. We are that barrier. We are that barrier, maybe even, but also we are the bridge. We are the bridge between this augmented created reality of the binary world of computers and even computation and AI and stuff, and even the unforeseen things inside of nature around us, right? We created computers, and so we are the thing that connects computers to nature. And we are that sort of piece, which I think is fascinating, really, really fascinating stuff. And that sort of helps me recontextualize my relationship to technology, where it is I am a conduit for nature to exist more inside of technology and for technology to better represent the chaos of nature. What? And that's why I want to end and get to this point here. Part 3, Beyond Ones and Zeros. Computers are not bad. Just because we see something as a binary does not make this a bad thing. Computers are so good, and the access, ability to connect, ability to find other non-binary people like myself could only really happen through computers. That's not true. Or it happens so much more seamlessly in my life through computers because it simplifies all of these. It just simplifies everything. Computers simplify our realities. Technology simplifies our reality. But just because something is simple doesn't make it good or bad. It just makes it incomplete. I think the simplicity of the technology of, agriculture, the simplicity of a plow is incomplete because the plow is the tool to then plant the seeds. We didn't just make plows and now it's like, great, we have plows. We use the plows. And I think that's why we're trying to use technology here. The universe runs on gradients, right? That gradient of gravitational pull, the gradient of observable light, the gradient of speed and things moving. It's all on this sort of gradient, and it all is this sort of ability to just keep things soupy and keep things messy. And I know we don't like mess because we like clear answers. I like clear answers. I don't like movies that have ambiguous endings because it makes me mad. I want that clarity. But do I want that clarity because it matches reality, or do I want clarity because it makes my life easier? The challenge we have for ourselves is not to completely abandon binary thinking. It is this like catch-22. The system we have created to use these computers runs on a binary code. So The more we get into quantum computing and AI and like these things that can start to expand around that, that's where we can start to just lean into, I guess, But it isn't, I'm not trying to ask us to abandon computers or abandon binary thinking at all. Let's just remember that is only one lens. And so it is okay to have a binary way of thinking about something as long as you just have the context to know that there are other areas of existence that just don't exist inside of a binary. They just don't. Gender being one of them. That is the most important core out of all of this, especially. Gender is not binary. The only reason we look at biology in terms of these genders is, again, categorization and itemization. That's it. That's it. There's no sort of moral understanding behind it. There is no sort of larger idea behind this thing. It was just literally the idea of, oh, here are these two things that make it easier for me to understand the world if I think of them in only two separate ways. And it's 2025. It's time for us to catch up to the things that we are creating. It's time to catch up to the complexity and the nuance of the world, to remember that binary thinking is just antiquated. It is. It is. And we have tools that still exist on it, yes, but this is a tool. This is a tool. It is technology, and computers are the paintbrush, and we are the painters, and we can use it to make paintings. This is not the paint. This is not the painting. It is a tool. As cool as tech is, as cool as the internet is, as amazing of a product and an incredible paintbrush that is the internet. But it is just a tool to help us understand the world. Well, my question for you: what realities are we missing when we see the world through a binary lens? Thanks so much for watching. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Thanks. Send this video to someone who is stuck inside of binary thinking, but it's not wrong to think in a binary way, but it's also not wrong to think in a non-binary way. So send this to someone who you want to challenge and be curious about how we can expand our thinking. Thanks for watching. That's all I have for you today. And remember, none of this has to be so serious. We are in dire times, yes, but if we can embrace growth with a smile, maybe a little bit of silliness, it makes the harder parts go down a little smoother. I love you. You can do this. And I'll see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, catch you on the flip flop. Oh, God.